Good morning everyone, especially to you sir. I'm Rapi Adoremos Base Cream 2 from Salayam Samis Oriental. So today I will discuss the nationalism and patriotism, basic concepts of nationalism and patriotism. We will start for nationalism. Nationalism is an ideology and movement defined by promoting the interests of a particular nation in a particular with the aim of acquiring and maintaining the nation's sovereignty over its country of origin. Best May 2010. Nationalism claims that each nation should regulate itself free from outside intervention, that a nation is a natural and ideal politic basis, and that the nation is only legitimate source of political authority. It also aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion, politics, and beliefs in a distinctive shared history, and to promote national unity or solidarity. Nationalism, therefore, seeks to preserve and encourage a nation's traditional culture, and revivals have been connected to nationalist movements. It is also fosters pride in domestic accomplishments and is strongly associated with patriotism. Nationalism is often paired with other ideologies, for instance conservatism or socialism. Types of nationalisms. Nationalism can be expressed along several ethnic, cultural, religious, or ideological lines. These self-definitions of countries are used to classify distinct kinds of nationalism. Although these categories are not mutually exclusive and many nationalist movements combine to differing degrees some or all of these components. Number 1. Ethnic nationalism. The country is described from a prior generation in terms of ethnicity and descent. It also involves the concept of a shared culture among group members and generally shared language. The nation's membership is hereditary. The state derives political legitimacy from its status as the ethnic group's homeland and from its obligation to safeguard the partially domestic group and as a group to promote its family and social life. In contrast to Western opinions of a country, defined by its geographic territory, theorist Anthony D. Smith utilized the word ethnic nationalism for non-Western notions of nationalism. The word ethno-nationalism is usually used only in relation to nationalists to support an explicit ideology along these lines. The more generic word is ethnic nationalism and is used by nationalists who had such views in an informal, instinctive, or unsystematic manner. The pejorative type of both is ethnocentric nationalism or tribal nationalism. Although tribal nationalism may have a non-pejorative significance when debating African, Native American, or other nationalisms that publicly claim a tribal identity. Number 2. Civic nationalism. The state derives political legitimacy from its citizens' active involvement and the extent to which it reflects the will of individuals. Civic nationalism lies within the traditions of rationalism and liberalism, but it is contrasted with ethnic nationalism as a type of nationalism. Civic nation membership is regarded to be voluntary. The growth, the growth of representative democracy in nations such as United States, France was affected by civil national values. State nationalism, often coupled with ethnic nationalism, is a version of civic nationalism. It means that the country is a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and the strength, and that there is the person to contribute to that objective. The country is supposed to be a community of those who contribute to the state's maintenance and strength, and where the person exists expressly in the society to contribute to that objective. This often results in fascism, generally characterized by authoritarianism and nationalism. Fascism is a political ideology. Number 3. Expansionist nationalism, a radical form of imperialism that includes independent patriotic feelings with a faith in expansionism, generally through military aggression. The word was coined in the scramble for Africa in the name of domestic glory, but was most closely linked with militarist governments in the 20th century, including fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, the Japanese Empire, and the Balkan nations of Albania, Great Albania, Bulgaria, the Great Bulgaria, Croatia, Greater Croatia, Hungary. Nations are not believed to be equivalent to the right to self-determination. Some countries are believed to possess features or qualities that make them superior to others. Therefore, expansionist nationalism argues the right of the state to expand its boundaries at the cost of its neighbors. 4. Romantic nationalism. It is otherwise known as organic nationalism and identity nationalism. It is the form of ethnic nationalism in which the state derives political legitimacy as a result and expressions of the nation's natural. It is based on the experience of a historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal. It expresses romanticism values and opposes the rationalism of enlightenment. A historical ethnic culture that meets the romantic ideal was emphasized by romantic nationalism. Folklore evolved as a romantic nationalist notion. Number 5. Cultural nationalism. The country is described by shared culture, not solely civic or ethnic. Chinese nationalism is an instance of cultural nationalism, partially due to China's many national minorities. Membership in the nation is neither completely voluntary nor hereditary. However, a traditional culture can be more readily integrated into the lives of any person, particularly if the person can obtain his or her abilities at an early point of his or her own lives. Cultural nationalism has been defined as a variety of non-civil or ethnic nationalism. 6. Third world nationalism. Nationalist feelings are the outcome of opposition to colonial rule to survive and maintain a domestic identity. 7. Liberal nationalism. Liberal nationalism is a kind of nationalism deeply defended by political philosophers who think that a non-xenophobic form of nationalism compatible with liberal values of liberty, tolerance, equality, and individual rights can exist. It is asserted that in order to lead meaningful, independent life, people need a national identity, and thus liberal democracies need domestic identity to work correctly. Liberal nationalists often defend the importance of domestic identity by stating that people need domestic identity to lead meaningful, independent life, and that liberal diplomatic politics need domestic identity to work correctly. Male are often thought to be early liberal nationalists. 8. Religious nationalism. Nationalism's connection to a specific religious faith, church, or affiliation. It can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity and a mutual bond between the nation's people. This connection can be divided into two dimensions: religions, politicizations, and religions' converse effects on politics. In the former aspect, it can be seen that a shared religion contributes to a sense of domestic unity, a common bond between the nation people. The support of national identity, comparable to a shared ethnicity, language, or culture, is another political element of religion. More ideology, ideological, ideol- ideological is the impact of religion on politics, where present interpretations of religious concepts inspire political activism and action. For instance, legislation are enacted to encourage strict religious adherence. Number 9. Pan-nationalism. Ethnic or cultural nationalism refers to a country that is itself a cluster of associated ethnic and cultural communities such as Turkish people. 10. Diaspora nationalism. Diaspora is an active population residing outside their traditional homelands. In this type of nationalism, there is a nationalist sense that Irish in the United States, the Jewish in the United States, and elsewhere, etc. 11. Number 11. Stateless nationalism. On nationalist basis, the Galatans and Basques means an ethnic or cultural minority within a nation state aims independence. National convertism, a political term mainly used in Europe to describe a version of convertism that focuses more on domestic interests than conventional convertism, while not being unduly nationalist or pursuing a far-right agenda. Number 13. Revolutionary nationalism. Revolutionary nationalism is an ideological theory that calls for a domestic group united, a shared sense of intent and destiny, also known as radical nationalism. It was first ascribed and strongly promulgated by Benito usually to followers of revolutionaries. Number 14. Left-wing nationalism. Left-wing nationalism, also sometimes referred to as socialist nationalism, relates to any political movement combining left-wing or socialism with nationalism. Notable examples include the 26 July movement of Fidel Castro, which launched the Cuban Revolution in 1959 to oust the American-backed Fulgencio Batista, Ireland's Sinn Féin, Israel's Labour Zionism, and the African National Congress. Now we will proceed to patriotism. Patriotism or national pride is a sense of love, dedication, and attachment to a country and alliance with other people who share the same impression. This attachment can be a mixture of many distinct emotions, including ethnic, cultural, political, or historical elements related to one's own country. This is a predominant virtue linked to a nation's love with greater emphasis on values and beliefs. One who is patriotic will be willing to offer any sacrifice to his nation and never live alone egotistically. For example, for the sake of his country, a soldier makes the ultimate sacrifice of his life for no other reason than being a citizen of that nation. Patriotism is a dedication to one's nation. In essence, patriotism is a sense of attachment and dedication to a country, nation, or political community, or just country love. The English word patriot is first known in the Elizabeth period. It originated from Latin patriota via Middle French, meaning countryman. Finally, from Greek patriots, meaning from the same nation, patris, meaning fatherland, by Liddell and Scott, 2013. The abstract noun patriotism appears in the early 18th century. By adhering to a national religion, patriotism can be reinforced. This is the reverse of the church-state separation requested by the Enlightenment intellectuals who saw patriotism and religion as analogs and opposing forces. Michael Billig and Jean K.L. Stein both asserted that it is hard to discern the distinction between patriotism and faith, and depends heavily on the attitude of the person who does label. Kinds of patriotism. Number 1. Patriotism of duty. This includes fidelity to one's nation through material acts. This is military service patriotism and other selfless sacrifice types. This is where patriotism becomes embodied and it's the idealistic, praiseworthy particular actions. Number 2. Patriotism of affection. This is the patriotism of the heart. It is about one's internal desire for his country's well-being. The patriotism of affection can be seen in the patriotism of duty, but it does not necessarily result in it. One can truly love his country and yet be a coward, just as one can theoretically fulfill a patriotic duty and yet feel apathetic about the country's welfare. Number 3. Patriotism of manners. This is customs, patriotism, written and unwritten, the patriotism of manners. is to place one's hand over the heart during the national anthem. It can be performed by anyone without actually needing affection or duty patriotism. While the above types of patriotism show, at least in part, the real beliefs and hopes of a person, the patriotism of manners establishes mostly a set of protocols. Types of patriotism. Personal patriotism. Personal patriotism is emotional and voluntary. The patriot adheres to certain patriotic values such as respect for the flag or the honoring of veterans. Other expressions of personal patriotism include enlisting the army, public service, and participation in the political process through voting or other forms of activism. Number 2. Official patriotism, promoted by the government, which has a high symbolic and ceremonial content. It is a logical consequences of the state itself, which derives legitimacy from being the expressions of the common good of the political community. National monuments and Veterans Days and commemoration ceremonies are typical examples. Often, official patriotism is highly regulated by protocol, with specific methods for handling flags or specific pledges and displays of allegiance. Official patriotism relies heavily on symbolic acts such as displaying the flag, singing the national anthem, saying a pledge, participating in a mass rally, placing a patriotic bumper sticker on one's vehicle, or any other way of publicly proclaiming allegiance to the state. Number 3. Symbolic patriotism. Symbolic patriotism in wartime is intended to raise morale in turn contributing to the war effort. Number 4. Peacetime patriotism cannot be so easily linked to a measurable gain for the state, but the patriot does not see it is an inferior. Levels of patriotism vary across time and among political communities. Typically, patriotic intensity is higher when the state is under external threat. The difference between patriotism and nationalism. While the terms patriotism and nationalism were once regarded as synonymous, distinct connotations were assumed. While both are people's feelings of affection for their nation, the values on which they are based are very distinct. Patriotism feelings are based on the country's positive values like liberty, justice, and equality. The patriot thinks that both their country's state system and individuals are inherently good and working together to achieve a better quality of life. On the other hand, nationalism emotions are based on the belief that one's nation is superior to all others. It is also holds a connotation of other countries' distrust or disapproval, leading to the premise that other states are competitors. While patriots do not degrade other countries automatically, nationalists do, sometimes to the point of calling for the global dominance of their country. Nationalism is the polar opposite of globalism by its protectionist beliefs. acoustic beliefs. Historically, both positive and negative have been the impacts of nationalism. While it has motivated movements of autonomy, such as Zionist movement that formed contemporary Israel, it was also a main factor in the increase of the German Nazi Party and the Holocaust Lonely 2019. According to Sidney G. Harris, the patriot is proud of his nation for what it does, and the nationalist is proud of his nation whatever it does. The first approach generates a sense of accountability, and the second a sense of blind stupidity leading to war. Then I will discuss the beginning of the Filipino nationalism. Originally, the word Filipino referred to the Philippine Spanish Criollos. The Spanish leaders described the natives as Indians during their 330-year rule over the Philippines. The Spaniards born in the Philippines were known as Insulars Criollos or Creoles were also called Filipinos during the colonial era as well. Spanish-born Spaniards or Philippine-based continental Spaniards were referred to as Peninsulars. Those of blended heritage have been called mestizos. Despite being considered inferior by the Peninsulars, the Creoles had enjoyed numerous rules of the state and church and composed most of the bureaucracy of government. The feeling of domestic awareness originated from the Creoles who now considered themselves Philippine. Three significant factors: economy, education, and parish secularization brought it to its emergence. These factors lead to the Filipino nationalism's birth. The Philippines opening to a global or world trade, the increase of the upper class, and the influx of Europe's liberal thoughts were just a few instances of how the Philippines became a stable nation. The first manifestation of Philippines nationalism followed in the 1880s and 1890s with a reform or propaganda movement carried out both in Spain and in the Philippines with the aim of propagandizing their circumstances of the Philippines in the hopes that the social, political, and financial life of the Philippines would be changed by peaceful means. History of the Philippine Revolution 2015. Other concepts of Filipino nationalism. Nationalism is the secular identification and engagement of our people with the Filipino nation and domestic community. It goes beyond our family, clan, tribe, village, city, province, religion, local culture, and religion. First and foremost, it is being pro-Filipino, believing that we belong to one body. Self-respect as a Filipino, pride, our national cultural heritage and manner of life with their constraints being realized. It involves pride in our heroes, pride in our flags, national anthem, and other symbols of our nationhood. National pride, dignity, inspired by the willingness to serve our nation along and with dedication. and to sacrifice for it necessary with our own lives. It is a tool of change and reform. It aims our moral and spiritual regeneration, our liberation from ignorance, bigotry, intolerance towards those who hold distinct views of themselves, parochialism, narrow-mindedness, fiducialism, a system in which higher-ranking individuals give land and protection and worked and fought for them in exchange. Colonial mentality, the imperialist attitude of the people's social and cultural interiority as a consequence of colonization, bribery and restored elitism, and elites advocacy or peasants as a dominant component in the scheme or community. In other words, as Filipinos, it has a powerful national identity, scent and a high-minded intent. And that's all everyone. Thank you.